Well, Elvis had it all. They say he was the king. But look how happy he was when he split the scene.
We all need it. We all need some strategies for living. So, are you ready? You ready for your daily dose of radio rehab?
So I'm just going to go ahead and be honest.
Yeah.
I think that I'm not ready.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I'm here and I'm engaged and I'm ready for you and everything Tuesday has to offer.
The only thing I can do is just radically accept that. Hey, folks, welcome into, hold that thought. Welcome into 1017 FM, 710 Keel. Welcome into another edition of our little program. We call it Strategies for Living. I'm Dr. David McMillian. He is Jimmie Bryant, PhD. That means he produces, he hosts, and he directs. And normally he just looks forward to Tuesday because there's...
That's right.
Yeah. Usually it's a room full. And today's not any different,
Right.
Is it?
And
yeah.
I looked forward to today.
Did
I was
you?
very happy to get in the car.
I bet you were. I mean, we in here, we all know what you were coming from, but we'll talk about that on another day. Of course, joining us as we welcome back LPC, Carla McCormick.
Thanks, guys. My mind is alert. My heart is receptive. I'm radically accepting.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And we welcome PLPC, Lauren Leon McMillian.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
That-
Don't have as cool of a saying yet as Carla, but I love it. I accept
That just came to me. Are you impressed?
Whoa, yeah.
You're working on it, though. Okay, so, in we actually came up with our topic today sooner than normal. You know, the way this usually goes at the office is, we pass each other. What, maybe 3 or 4 times. What do you want to talk about today? I don't know. What do you want to talk about today?
I'll think about it.
I'll think about it. But it was pretty, I didn't look at my watch exactly, but it was, around 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning.
It was in the morning, yes.
Yeah. And you came right out with it.
No, Lauren did. Lauren remembered because we talked about this a few weeks ago, and I said I want to do a show about this, and Lauren remembered.
Way to go, Lauren.
I do my best. Sometimes I can remember things.
So, radical acceptance. Let's talk about, before we go to break here, when we talk about radical acceptance, what are we really talking about in a nutshell?
Letting go of try to control the past. Just accepting it.
Okay.
Receiving the moment.
Receiving the moment. A lot of us spend an inordinate amount of our energy trying to make what is different than what is. Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what radical acceptance, I think, really boils down to. And so we're going to talk about how to practice it today, the importance of practicing it, and how healing it can be to practice this thing called radical acceptance. So we've got a lot to unpack this evening.
I'm excited to talk about this tonight.
Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for a Living. We are presented by the Robinson Film Center. We're presented by Azalea Cleaners, by Pintail Roofing,
Roof.
by Learning Rx, by Hempress, Cannabis with Love, 3766 Uri Drive in Shreveport. And we're brought to you by the Shreveport Little Theater. Back in a moment. Radical acceptance is what's written on the board this evening. So we'll see what Professors Carla and Lauren come up with. After all, Jimmie, they are the heavy hitters.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Jay Merle for Pintail Roofing. Let's talk about quality. When you hire Pintail to build your roof, here's what you can expect. Quality and quality control are the most important concerns for us at Pintail, and you need to know that Pintail stands tall with swift and professional performance on any warranty call. This is our most important policy. And remember, we're your neighbors. We'll be here for you for the long haul. Our family's lived here for over 100 years, and we aren't going anywhere. On the commercial side of Pintail's business, our fluid-applied roofing solutions can save thousands of dollars over conventional commercial roofing options. Call Pintail at 226-ROOF for a free inspection of your home or commercial building. That's 226-7663. Pintail Roofing. What's the condition of your roof?
The following program is paid for by David McMillian.
We're talking in studio with Paul Little from Bailey's Jewelers. Paul, why should people buy their gold and silver from Bailey's Jewelers?
Yes, with the value of the U.S. dollar decreasing every day due to inflation, gold and silver in the form of coins and bullion is seen as a real safe haven asset during times of political and economic adversity. You know that gold and silver provides a hedge against inflation because of its intrinsic value.
Bailey's Jewelers in Bossier City, our Kiel industry ace. We're talking with Todd Roten from Dixie Floors, our Kiel industry ace. Todd, if someone's looking for new flooring, what are some key things they need to know?
Dixie Floors is a locally operated and owned business, and we have been for 31 years. When you visit our showroom at Dixie Floors, we start by asking you a few general questions to find out exactly what type of floor is best suited for you and your family. We will schedule a time to come out and measure your floors. It's free of charge in the nearby areas. It's a very simple process to help you and your family find the perfect new floor.
Find out more at DixieFloors.net.
When the power goes out in a storm, the last thing you want to learn is that it could take days to get restored. So here's something to learn before the next storm. Kohler generators fire up automatically within 10 seconds of a power outage, so your house will stay cool and the lights will stay on. When it comes to reliability, nothing beats a Kohler generator, even in the storm of the century. Find your Kohler generator at Precision Mechanical Power Services in Bossier City. Find them online at precision24.net.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Less money for the exact same thing. Hope this is clear enough. Consumer Cellular, when freedom calls, they're here to answer. Switch today and get a second month of service for free. Go to consumercellular.com/free month and enter promo code free month. Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular's single line 5 gigabyte data plan and unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023. Promotion subject to terms and conditions.
And welcome into 1017 FM, 710 Kiel. Welcome into Strategies for Living, Jimmie Bryant, LPC Carla McCormick, PLPC Lauren Leon McMillian, and I'm David McMillian. We're talking about radical acceptance. So, okay, let me see if I can get my my arms around this, Carla and Lauren. Are we talking about kind of life on life's terms? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
So let me quote Psychology Today.
Okay.
So they say radical acceptance is letting go of the need to control, judge, and wish things were different than they are.
Okay.
So yeah, so that is exactly what it is. It's I'm not, holding on to it. Well, if I had done this instead of this, and I should have done this, and then this had happened, or that had happened, or even, it wasn't fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody, it could be anything, somebody, did something to me, or I lost my job for, some reason. It's not fair. So I'm holding on to it, right? I'm not letting it go. I'm not just accepting, okay, that happened. There's nothing I can do about it. I have to move on.
In real life, in dealing with our issues and our problems as we navigate through life, how big a problem is that?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge because I think people don't understand how they're holding on to the past when they are, like how just say, so when we say holding on to the past, it's not just like, oh, I'm reliving it. It's, well, it wasn't fair, or
it wasn't supposed to be that way.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't supposed to happen that way.
So it's a form of it shouldn't have.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have, yeah.
you know.
So I think it's interesting that you started out, how can I wrap my arms around this?
Yeah. Yeah.
When really radical acceptance is about just opening your arms rather than trying to wrap it and hold it wherever it is.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of us, and maybe a lot of us don't realize it, I think we start it pretty early, though.
Yeah.
We want to control. I mean, we want control at the very least of our immediate surroundings and environment, which take in a lot of people. if we're a student, it takes in the school we're in and all the teachers and administrators. If we're a husband or a wife, it's my spouse or partner and all the kids and the way that they should act and behave, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, and I think what happens is, without even knowing it, we teach our kids. We'll say, well, that wasn't fair. You know, I'm sorry that the whole class got punished and you were behaving, you know, or let me call that teacher and call that teacher out, you know, because my little boy wasn't doing anything and he got punished too. Right. So we're instead of teaching them acceptance, and you can see how that's a slippery slope, and that's a double-edged sword. We want life to be as fair as possible, but at some point,
but the truth is, life is not.
No.
The truth is, life isn't fair a lot of the time, and it's difficult.
I mean, Scott Peck, right?
Yeah.
The road less traveled is what life is difficult is the first line of the book. And so, and I think that that's something that we have to learn to embrace ourselves so we can teach our kids. Yeah, it's not always going to be fair. It's not always going to be even Steven, but that's okay.
Right.
You can adapt, you can adjust, or you can choose to hold on to it and be angry and bitter and kind of mad at the world.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know those people.
Well, I think that in a nutshell gets a lot of people into therapy. Gets a lot of people into a place where they maybe need therapy. Some of them don't go, or some other form of intervention or help, because it causes a lot of misery in our lives.
Well, because we hang on to the misery, right? I mean, Lauren, you know, if I'm hanging on, then if I can't accept the pain, let's say someone died and they should, a kid, let's say a kid gets killed, right? That's horrible. But it wasn't fair. It wasn't right. It shouldn't happen this way, you know? So now if I can't get to the point of acceptance with that, then I can't ever get through the grief process, right? And that's why people get stuck.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that we're talking and using the word radical
that's
before
what
acceptance.
I agree.
And you know, a lot of people may not realize that radical means root. I mean, we may think in our minds when we hear radical, oh, that's those people out there protesting, right? They're the radicals. But the word radical is
like in math, radicals, right?
Right, root. It's rooted. Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. In my mind, radical, when I hear radical, it means big.
Yeah.
So in my mind, when I heard radical acceptance, it means big, like you said, with your arms open wide, like big acceptance. I'm going to accept it all.
And it is that, because if you get down into the root, you've got it all.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing more important than the roots, right?
And the roots are all intertangled, right?
Yeah.
And they're out spreading, and so they all affect and intertwine with each other as one.
Yeah. We
I like that.
We're Lauren is springing her own. Was it a mint plant?
Oh, basil.
Basil.
Yeah.
So her mom gave her a cutting, and it's interesting. We put it in a little glass, and we're getting it ready to, you know, have its own little pot. And it's the particular point that we put it in the kitchen. It's just thriving. It's kind of neat to watch the networking of the roots, you know, sprout out, because at first you couldn't see anything, and then one little twig and then two, and now it's just an intricate network of, you know, it's just about ready. It's almost ready to go into its own little pot, you know. own little environment.
I love that. I love that analogy, because when we think about how, like, sometimes people come into counseling and they say, I need to work on my anger. Right? And they think they can just work on their anger, right? And they don't recognize how intertwined there is, let's say, anger with everything else. So, if I can't accept something and I become angry and bitter, how do those roots spread into every single part of my life?
Right. Well, any form of non-acceptance is blocking growth.
Oh, yeah.
It's a stagnation.
Yeah. We are talking radical acceptance this evening here on Strategies for Living. Carly, do you think I can make Jimmie see pink?
I don't know.
Okay, well, let me see if I can do that. Jimmie, let's talk about the Robinson Film Center, 617 Texas Street, downtown Shreveport, right?
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because everything's pink right there. Well, it's pink in Oppenheimer.
I was about to say, have they recovered from Barbenheimer?
They have not recovered from Barbenheimer, but I know how we can recover. See?
How can we?
We need to go get us some duck nachos, and then we need to get us, I don't know, maybe some of that chicken and andouille sausage gumbo.
I want that this time.
Yeah, and then, we move on to the chicken and waffles. Well, you can have the chicken and waffles. I'm going to get the filet mignon and lump crab meat.
Okay.
Of course, where we are, we're on the second floor of RFC. We're at Abby Singer's Bistro,
The one
right?
and only.
Yeah. Are you seeing pink yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Not exactly red, but pink, because it's Barbie right now at Robinson Film Center. Hey, there's always fun going on. That's the bottom line at Robinson Film Center. You can check out everything going on at robinsonfilmcenter.org. What you need to do is you need to join the crowd. You need to join the fun. Become a member. Get discounts on movies. Get concession upgrades. Get bistro deals. RFC, 617 Texas Street, downtown Shreveport, robinsonfilmcenter.org.
Reading begins not in the classroom, but in your child's brain. I'm Donisa Walker with Learning Rx Shreveport. If your child struggles to read, maybe he or she has trouble focusing or comprehending, Learning Rx Shreveport offers a science solution to reading problems, working one-on-one with your child, targeting his or her reading skills. Today, call Learning Rx Shreveport. Make an appointment to have your child assessed. I know you want to help your child, so does Learning Rx Shreveport.
We're joined by Laura and Holly with Jackson Construction.
Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Jimmie Bryant, David McMillian, along with LPC, Carla McCormick, PLPC, Lauren Leon McMillian. We're talking about embracing radical acceptance today here on Strategies for Living. Okay, so let me ask you a couple of things here from what you said. I think I heard you say that you said forgiveness it blocks our ability to forgive if we don't radically accept. Did I understand that
I don't think
correctly?
you can get to forgiveness without acceptance.
Okay. All right. Because what do most of us want to do? We want to practice. A lot of us say we want to forgive, but what it really is, it's forgiveness with strings.
What most people practice, you mean?
Yeah,
Most people think forgiveness
and what most of us think forgiveness is, right? Right?
Yeah, in terms of letting someone off the hook. Is that what people think?
Right. Well, I'll forgive Lauren for the ugly things she said if she would just own up to it and apologize. Then I can forgive her.
Yeah.
Right. So
there's a couple of strings attached there.
Yeah. And that's not true forgiveness. I mean, true forgiveness is letting go and moving forward.
Without strings attached.
Right.
Yeah.
Without strings. And you can't do that without radical acceptance.
Well, because and now radical acceptance is not saying that what happened to you was right or good
or okay.
Or okay. It's just
it is.
You're right. I can't hang on to it because if I hang on to it, that means I'm still trying to wish it was different. I'm still trying to think why it should have been different.
I'm still back there living it.
Right.
I'm at least a part of me.
How many times do you hear people say, "Oh, I'm over it," and then they'll start talking about it, and you see their anger flare up, and I'm over it, but I don't talk to that person anymore. But I'm over it.
I'm over it.
Right.
I've forgiven, but I've cut that person completely out of my life, or I treat that person as if I'm.
Like they're dead to
me. Yeah.
And that's where that comes in. You can't truly forgive unless you go back and radically accept, okay, they got to this point because X, Y, and Z. I can understand that. It doesn't make it right or okay. But I can understand what happened, and that's what it is. And now I've learned my lesson. Let me put that in there. I've learned some kind of lesson from that. And now I'm going to let it go and live my life with that lesson in mind.
Okay, can I ask a devil's advocate question here? Okay, so you said understanding. Mm-hmm. Do I have to practice radical acceptance? Does that mean I have to understand all of it?
No.
Okay, so help me out, because
you don't have to understand exactly where it's coming from the other person's perspective. Okay. Maybe you have to understand from your perspective how it has impacted your life.
Okay, excellent.
Okay?
Yeah.
And what you have learned from that, and what are you going to take away from that?
So it's about not about that other person's side. It's about what is going on inside of you.
No, because we're all reflections of each other.
Okay.
Okay. And so even if one of my new artists that I like is Cortana, right? And this is from one of her songs. She says something like, thank you for showing me the part of me that I needed to come to grips with. It's not that exact wording, but
close, yeah. And she really is. I mean, some of her music and especially her lyrics are.
She's my new jam.
Yeah, if you're a if you listen to on Spotify. Cortana, Kirtana. Okay. Some of her stuff is just really gets your attention. It really reflects a lot of what the things that we talk about here on Strategies. Yeah.
I'll have to put her on my playlist.
There you go. Maybe play her in the office a little bit.
There you
go. Yeah.
But my point there is that with each interaction, even if somebody disturbs your peace or triggers you, right?
Right.
Each trigger is an opportunity for self-reflection and to learn something.
Okay.
And you can be thankful for that.
But I've got to point it at me.
Right.
Not point it at blaming the other person and acting, okay, well, it should be, they shouldn't have done that. It should be different from that. That's really not practicing radical acceptance, because it did happen. Whatever it is that we're talking about did in fact happen.
Yeah.
Well, and so, but how often, so, you know, you made me think of something when you're saying that. How often do you have a client that says, and I kind of lost my train of thought here. How often do you have a client that is saying, like, I accept, but I'm still angry, I'm still upset, it shouldn't have happened, and it wasn't my fault. Right, you know, and then they're gonna kind of twist it around to, you triggered me, and if you hadn't triggered me, then I wouldn't have had to behave the way I have. So it's your fault for triggering me, instead of owning their own. Okay, I got triggered. Right. My let's say my little Carla gets triggered, and then she behaves badly. Right. Now, I can be mad at Lauren for triggering my little Carla, or I can just recognize, I can accept that little Carla got triggered, and then little Carla has to make a decision of how she's going to behave after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So, because that's what, when you say you have to own it yourself, but we'll blame the other person for triggering us.
And I think that's massive right there. That we, if we're going to practice what we're calling radical acceptance, we've got to jettison the idea of blame or fault finding.
Well, and another way to think about it, maybe that might help, you know, to think of this as a sense of empowerment. I mean, by blaming someone, you're giving your power away.
Yeah.
When the truth is that you have the power to change the way you see and act and do anything.
As you've all been talking about this, I've had this reoccurring thought that radical acceptance is a way of taking responsibility.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's 100%. You know, it reminds me of Ho'oponopono.
Yeah. Ho'oponopono is a way to practice true forgiveness. You know, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. I just went blank.
Forgive me. I'm sorry. Please forgive.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love you.
Yeah, and it's got to be all four of those. That's Ho'oponopono is all the Hawaiian way of forgiveness. And you know, it's elegant when you stop and think about it.
Yeah.
It is radical. It's a way of radically forgiving. It's also a way, and you know, I'll ask the three of you this: if I'm hearing you correctly, what I'm hearing you say is radical acceptance is really a way to bring myself to the here and now. It's a way to bring myself to the present, to the reality of now.
And so by bringing myself to the present, the reality of now, I can let go of the pain and the anger of the past,
right,
and or the anxiety of the future.
Okay.
Right? I mean, so that's, so, you know, one of the things when you're working on, you know, so you feel what you feel, right?
Right.
You can't control your feelings.
No. Right.
Now I can.
That has to be accepted. You know.
Exactly.
That's
right.
part of
Instead
it.
of people, but people try really hard to not feel, period, or to not feel a certain way. I'm trying.
Sure.
I never get angry. Well, everyone gets angry, but they're trying not to feel angry because anger has a negative connotation in their mind because of whatever.
Right.
So I think when you practice radical acceptance and then forgiveness, that's also a way of practicing healthy boundaries, because now I'm you know, healthy boundaries are about me, right?
Yeah.
They're about me keeping myself safe, keeping my car on the middle of the road, not getting stuck in the ditch on someone else's, you know, thoughts, ideas, opinions. It's about me.
Right.
I want to, you said something about, you know, blocking, it blocks your feelings. I think this should come with a disclaimer. I think radical acceptance is going to lead to more feelings. And it's going to lead to grief. But I think that's a good thing.
And you mentioned, Carla, grief a few minutes ago.
Because once we accept what is, we we usually have to grieve what we thought it should have been or could have been.
Right. And that goes with losing a person, or it goes with this isn't what I thought my life would look like.
Or even it's not fair.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I mean, you guys are saying a lot, because the truth is a lot of us spend an inordinate amount of time on the woulda, shoulda, coulda, especially the shoulda. What should have been, what ought to have been, what could have been if you had just not done X, Y, Z.
Well, and that's the reason why people hold on to anger, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if you do that long enough, I'm mad about it. It wasn't fair.
And it's also familiar. It's a pattern that you can get in, and that becomes familiar. Whereas
some people even an addiction.
Yeah, sure. But once you move through acceptance, things change, and that could be scary too.
Who am I? And then if
Without
I have acceptance, who am I if I forgive?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, who am I?
Yeah. If I've spent 30 years of my life, let's
Being a
say,
victim.
or 40 years of my life, carrying whatever I'm carrying around for whoever I'm carrying it against, that's scary to think of my life without that.
And yet it's so freeing. You know, once you get you'll have to move through the feelings of fear and the unknown, but that can be empowering. I mean, at that point you get to create. You get a blank slate at that point.
And just because it's scary doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do, or you know, I mean, I talk a lot about courage, you know, because doing this takes courage, and so courage is not I'm not afraid. It's I'm afraid, and I'm accepting that I'm afraid.
Courage is not the absence of fear.
And I'm moving through that fear, and I'm moving forward, even though I am afraid.
Right.
And growth happens in that, you know, right outside your comfort zone. On the leading edge of fear.
You know, and how many of us have not had the experience of worrying, being afraid of something, being afraid of what might be, you know, and then whatever it is comes to be, and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And we wasted all this inordinate amount of energy, you know, on the worry and the fear. That's why
Most often.
Yeah, that's why we say, you know, the little acronym FEAR, false expectations appearing real. So much of the time, the things that we are afraid of really don't turn out to be what we anticipate or what we think they might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most often.
I think, I think very often.
Okay, so what if I practice radical acceptance and I just go, okay, then what's the benefit? What happens to my life? Where do I go from there? What's the payoff?
I'm free.
Yeah. Anywhere, anything you want and you can imagine. Yeah. You know, so really what acceptance is doing, you know, we all go through things, you know, events, and especially in childhood. And then you just add on top of that, right? And if we're not accepting that, we're continuously living in that loop, you know, of past events. And once we accept this is what happened, and then we can move to forgiveness, you get to create. That's when you become a co-creator in life.
We free ourselves to be able to create, to really create our lives, yeah.
It makes me think about walking in like a linear path, you know, from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And every time I don't accept or forgive, I leave a little piece of myself behind that would otherwise be available to experience life.
Yeah.
And so by practicing radical acceptance, more of me is available. I have more of myself at my disposal.
I like
that.
To experience life.
That's truly it, because that's the energy you're wasting. You're giving it away to the past, you know, holding on to whatever it is. That takes some energy and part of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Jimmie.
Oh, and I think people don't realize how much they do that, hold on to the past. I think they, like I said, they'll say, oh, yeah, well, it's behind me. I let it go. But
Yeah.
they really haven't.
They really haven't.
And that's
Right.
where the gratitude can come in, because you never know until it's triggered, right?
Right.
Until all of a sudden, I didn't like that. But then I can look at that and be like, oh, where did that come from? Right?
Yeah. Why am I so angry because somebody said something so small?
Right.
Why did I get so angry or upset about it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Because
here?
then it turns from, oh, why did you make me angry, to why did I get angry? Thank you for making me angry because it showed me something about myself I didn't know
There you go.
that I was holding on to still.
We're talking radical acceptance this evening. All the world's a stage, after all. That reminds me of the Shreveport Little Theater.
Well done.
I thought you'd like
He's the
that.
master of the segue.
It's been going on for 101 years. Of course, we've been talking about the summer musical. Everybody always looks forward to the summer musical. Lauren and I went to see Anything Goes Saturday evening. Wow. What a performance,
That was
huh?
great. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Tap dancing and singing.
oh, yeah. Wow. You're going to have fun. But I tell you what, ShreveportLittleTheater.com is where you need to go right now if you don't have your tickets. Of course, Anything Goes runs through the 30th, so you've still got time. There's plenty of performances left, but not if you don't get your tickets now. So go to ShreveportLittleTheater.com. While you're there, check out the 23-24 season. We've been talking about it. Always Patsy Cline is next on stage, followed by My Way, the music of Sinatra, followed by the Wonderettes, coming back with Winter Wonderettes, and so much more. You can check it all out. ShreveportLittleTheater.com. It's American theater at its best, where it's been. 812 Margaret Place in Shreveport, ShreveportLittleTheater.com. Okay, so here's the deal. Welcome back into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM 710 Keel. So, Jimmie, just play back the outtake that happened during the commercial. And, Lauren Leon McMillian, PLPC Lauren Leon McMillian, LPC Carla McCormick, and
They really nailed it.
They did.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ready to hear them?
I didn't hit the button.
Yeah, we're okay. We're talking about radical acceptance this
You
evening.
just have to accept that Jimmie didn't record
She
that.
didn't record it. Okay, so you guys get as close as you can.
And go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord.
My little piece was, if it's out of your hands, then it deserves freedom from your mind too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not, I'm not in denial. I'm not burying my head in the sand. I'm not an ostrich.
It's not a pretend
and
game.
pretending like
Yeah.
it didn't happen. I understand fully what happened. I understand fully the consequences. I understand my part in it. I understand that it wasn't fair. It's not, I'm going to forget and pretend like it didn't happen. It's just, I realize that this happened, that it may or may not have changed me, but I've got to move on with the changed me, moving forward and becoming the best me I can be.
With the reality of what is truth, what is actually now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so then that's how I grow, and that's how I stop blaming, stop playing the victim, stop living in the past. Because because like you said, I have to be in the here and now to be able to do that.
Right.
And if you still play the victim or, blame here and there, that's okay.
Right.
That's what radical acceptance is about. It's about accepting that, okay, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, and it's just the awareness of, oh, that was a trigger, or that was something I could have done better.
So practicing radical acceptance is about staying as aware and conscious as I possibly can on an ongoing basis.
Well, and that's why we say practice. I mean, because it's hard, it's difficult, it's a new way of thinking, it's a new perspective, and so that's going to take some time. That's going to take some practice. I'm gonna mess up. I'm not. I won't be able to do it perfectly, and that's okay. I can accept that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Is there any time that it's not appropriate to, practice radical acceptance
In an abusive situation.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't want anyone to ever accept being abused.
If someone is treating you poorly, or someone is disrespecting you, you need to radically accept that they are doing that,
Right.
and then take action. Right.
Well,
Take
and
appropriate
that's
action.
a really key point. Instead of, well, they didn't really mean it. It was only one time. I made them mad. It was my fault. That's not accepting. It is, what does Maya Angelou say? When people show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And what she's really talking about is accepting people for who they really are, instead of
Right.
trying to create them into some illusion that you want them to be.
So in that sense, isn't it still radical acceptance?
It still is.
Still is, yeah.
But you're not accepting
The
being
behavior.
abused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remove yourself from the situation.
Yeah. When is it most appropriate? When, is it, I guess, when relationships end or change, that's an appropriate place.
Right. I think
A loved one's death, is an appropriate place. If I find that I am using this as a block, I'm using my inability, or I'm holding on to as a block to my own growth. Well, then it's very appropriate to say, okay, how do I move towards this thing they're talking about this evening, this radical acceptance?
For me, anytime that I have a strong emotion, and it's usually pain, like someone hurts my feelings, or, I'm really sad. And then I think, then I have to think, okay, what's my part in this? What do I need to learn from this? And what do I just have to accept? Jay's not here, but he would love me to say this. When we talk about, the serenity prayer, it says,
Yep.
God, help me to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can. And I can remember early on, for me. I was tearful. I was like, what if I'm trying to accept something that I should be changing, and what if I'm trying to change something I shouldn't, accept?
Yeah.
And they said, dummy, that's why we pray for wisdom.
That's good.
But I think anytime you have a strong emotion or a strong reaction, that's kind of a trigger to go, what's happening here?
Yeah, it's a trigger and should point me to opportunity here.
Well, I think the first opportunity there with a strong emotion is to accept that you have a strong emotion and let yourself feel it.
You're right. Instead of trying to push that feeling down and not feel it.
Right.
Yeah. Because then where does that go? Then that pops up as anxiety.
Right, or something else somewhere else.
And that's a pretty common thing that we do. We try to avoid uncomfortable, what we would label as bad feelings. There's no such thing, but we label it that, right?
Right. And the thing with that is, it's just like pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, right? And if you stuff it down, you'll continue to suffer with it because you're holding on to it.
Yeah.
What's the ABC of cognitive behavior? It's the activating event. So it's
the
what
A
happens.
Is the activating
it's
what
my
actually
belief
happened.
about the event,
right?
And then C is the consequences, which is really what I do about it, right?
Right.
So when we talk about acceptance, we're working on the B,
right?
Changing our idea, our belief about what happened,
right?
Yeah.
Yep. And that's where we get stuck. So that's where radical acceptance really comes in, because at that belief point, examining, well, what do I really think of? What am I really thinking here? And being willing to be honest with myself, maybe even if appropriate or if I need to go get help,
right,
from someone who's not involved, if
you're having trouble stepping back and being the non-judgmental observer, that's part of
that is exactly what therapy is. Because therapy is basically, the therapist holds up a mirror and says, here's what I see. Here's without judgment, without predisposition, without a whole bunch of family history. It's like,
here's what I see happening. What would you like to do? Would you like to do? Because therapy's not going to be it's not supposed to be. Right. You must do this. You have to do this.
No
this
advice,
is what you got to do.
Even,
Yeah, and it's not supposed to be.
No.
It's not. That's not what therapy's about. Yeah.
No.
As much as some of us may want that. Yeah.
But I think you said something in the beginning about the roots and how tangled they are, and I think in my mind I see a big tangled mess of cords, right? So all these cords, so people think I go to therapy and I just want to work on this one thing. Well, it's a big tangled mess. So you work on how do you untangle? You pull this one, you tease this one, you loosen this one, you flip this one under. And for me, therapy's a lot like that, understanding that everything that I think and feel, good, bad, and everything that happened to me is a big kind of conglomeration.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Conglomeration of all of those things. So you have to understand the interconnectedness. When I originally went to therapy in the way back beginning, I went for anger management.
Right.
What I wound up doing was family of origin trauma work.
Well,
funny how that
was the
happens.
root.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how they were connected.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the radical. There's the rootedness, like you said. Yeah. Radical acceptance. We're talking about it today here on Strategies for Living, and we'll be back in a moment. Carla McCormick, Lauren Leon McMillian, Jimmie Bryant, David McMillian here on Strategies. We'll be right back. welcome back. Welcome back into 1017 FM, 710 Keel. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Jimmie Bryant just playing that happy music over there.
Yeah. You
he's-
like it.
Yeah, I do. Radical acceptance. We're talking about it with LPC Carla McCormick, with PLPC Lauren Leon McMillian. And what are we? What's the takeaway here, Carla? What are you taking away today?
That if I can radically accept, then I can move forward, and there's more room for joy
Yeah.
and happiness in my life. You know, because for me, why do I want people to do this work? Because I want them to have a more joyful, happy life.
Yeah.
When their life is filled up with anger and anxiety and frustration, those are joy robbers.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
you know the things that come into your life that are joyful and good, you won't be able to experience them fully as long as you stay angry and anxious and frustrated.
Yeah.
You know.
If you practice radical acceptance, it's that radical part. You're really getting down to the root
I like that. I
of,
like that
of
better
what's
than-
going on. And really, it all comes back to the F word.
Mhm.
You know, it all comes back to forgiveness. Because if I'm living, I'm going to experience pain. I'm going to get hurt. I mean, that just goes with the territory. But as you said, Lauren, I'm going to experience pain. I don't necessarily have to suffer.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
And that's what the forgiveness part is.
that's the forgiveness keeps me from suffering because it keeps me clean.
Right.
Really, what forgiveness is cleaning.
Yeah.
And you want to do it every day, at least.
Yeah, at
If
least
not
every day,
every-
but probably many times every
Right.
day.
You-
Little and big.
You take a shower every day.
You do, yeah, and people would start telling you if you don't. So
You start to stink emotionally, I think, if you don't.
I agree. I agree, and I think that includes self-forgiveness.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living, presented by the Robinson Film Center, also by Azalea Cleaners, by Pintail Roofing, by Learning RX, by Hempress, Cannabis with Love, 3766 Uri Drive in Shreveport. Miss Penny Ryan's going to be here with us tomorrow on
Okay.
Strategies for Living. And we're brought to you by the Shreveport Little Theater. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Carla McCormick, for Lauren Leon McMillian, for Jimmie Bryant, I'm David McMillian, and we'll see you next time here on Strategies for Living.
Bright side.